The fabulous city of Ferndale City Council meeting on Monday, January 27th. I call the meeting at 7 o'clock. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, can we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
Here.
Councilmember Mikulski.
Here.
Councilmember James.
Here.
Councilmember Polika.
Here.
And Mayor Piana.
Here. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I motion to table agenda item 7B, consideration of the appointment of Dennis Whitey to the Civil Service Board as submitted by the city clerk until our next council meeting so as to further develop the process by which we communicate and consider vacancies for city boards and commissions.
I'll second that.
Okay. And I know that we have another request to move consent agenda item up, or at least have a presentation on it.
Yes. I move that we move consent agenda item 6E up to the presentations after the senior group presentation. So make that one 4C.
6E as an elephant up to 4C as in cat.
Yes.
And 4C marijuana report presentation becomes 4D as in dog.
Yes.
And will we be able to approve the resolution at that time under 4C if it moves up there? Or do we have to do it under the consent? 'Cause we just really want a presentation on the human trafficking.
Through the chair, it's up to you. If you plan to approve the resolution, you could pull it from the consent agenda
that's-
and
well-
move it to
Okay.
item 4C.
That's what we would do.
That's what we'll do. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. The second that was, though, before the second request on the presentation up to the human trafficking. Are you good with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay. Roll call, please. City Clerk.
Councilmember Mikulski.
Here, or yes. Sorry.
Councilmember Polika.
Yes.
Councilmember James.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
Yes.
And Mayor Piana.
Yes. That is the approval of the agenda. Next is presentations. And first up on the presentations is the introduction of new fire department staff of our Fire Marshal and 2 firefighter and paramedic employees. Fire Chief?
Hi, everyone. Tonight
evening.
I'd like to introduce 2 members of the fire department, 2 brand-new members. To my left here is firefighter Evan Shavala. He joined the department in December. He was hired successfully. He's a firefighter paramedic. He comes from Fraser Public Safety Department, where he served 1.5 years. He obtained his firefighter 1 and 2 and paramedic through Macomb Community College. And prior to that, he was in the U.S. Navy, and he participated in the Navy SEALs. Firefighter David Cale was hired. He's this gentleman right here. Okay, they're a little shy. He was hired earlier this month. Prior to Ferndale, he worked for the city of Romulus for 4 years and Beaumont Hospital as an ER technician for 8 years. He's been a paramedic for 10 years, so he's got a lot of experience and he brings a lot to the table for our department. As you may know, there's been a shortage of qualified candidates in the fire department, fire service across the state of Michigan for the last couple of years, and we continue to struggle to find the right candidates. It's very competitive. People come and go. They go to different departments. Candidates have their choices because there's so many openings in different departments. So we're very happy that they chose Ferndale over all the other departments they could have been on because they're both very well qualified candidates. So I'd like to introduce firefighter paramedic Shavala and firefighter paramedic Cale.
Welcome to the city.
Fire Marshal. He's shy. He's got a lot of public speaking to do, so Dennis is a little bit shy. Come on up, Dennis. So we have exciting promotional announcement here. After a long search and a very competitive testing process, Sergeant Barr is our new fire marshal. Sergeant Barr has over 26 years in the fire service with nearly 20 in Ferndale. I'm going to read right from this. Some of his certifications include EMS instructor for the state of Michigan, hazmat technician, fire inspector 1. He's a FEMA juvenile fire setter counselor, and he's also was a sergeant. He was elected by his peers as the 2019 Firefighter of the Year because he demonstrates integrity and leadership to his coworkers in the community he serves. Being the fire marshal bears a lot of responsibility and commitment. Your schedule changes from a 24-hour shift to a 5-day work week. This is a big transition for him and his family, believe it or not. This position requires good customer service and communication skills as well as organizational leadership abilities. Dennis has demonstrated all of those qualities throughout his career. Public educator, fire inspector, fire investigator, and public information officer are just a few hats that he will wear as fire marshal. Informed decision-making is crucial, and enforcing the fire and life safety code is his top priority to assure our community is safe and the number of accidents are reduced through prevention and education. Dennis will attend Advanced Inspector and Investigation School through the Michigan State Police and the NFPA, as well as Staff and Command through Eastern Michigan University in the near future. He has a lot of work ahead of him and some big shoes to fill, which are mine. Let's bring his wife Jamie up to the podium. Let me give you this. So tradition is, if you can get a picture. Tradition is that spouse or family member pin the badge. So this is badge number 3 for Fire Marshal. And Jamie, if you don't mind, be very careful with this. Head up there. And you notice I shaved my mustache.
I almost didn't recognize you. I would keep staring at you like, what is different with our
It transformed. It's part of the job. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Fire Marshal Dennis.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're just so proud to have you join the Ferndale team and for the promotion. Next on the agenda is the Ferndale Senior Group presentation and the lovely Jeannie Davis.
Thank
Welcome.
you. You all look so wonderful up there. Congratulations to everybody. Everybody looks so eager. I can't wait to see what you're going to accomplish. So, for our meetings, we have kind of a full February. For our first meeting in February, we have our appetizer potluck in honor of Valentine's Day. Everybody is welcome. Just bring your favorite appetizer, enough to feed 10 or more people. And we just sort of eat and socialize, and we do a Valentine trivia. And as always, when we have our potluck, the council and the mayor are all invited, so you're all welcome. It's 11 o'clock at the Kulik Center, and it's February 12th, which is a Wednesday. So for our second meeting in February, which is February 26th, Kevin Deacon Krause will be speaking to us, and I believe he's speaking on the history of Detroit. Whatever Kevin speaks on, it's fine. It's great. So, and again, everybody is welcome. There's no charge. When we have special people like this, you don't even have to be a senior. If you're a Kevin Deacon Krause groupie, you can come and listen to him. All are welcome. And for our trips, on the 27th, we will be visiting, that's a Thursday, we'll be visiting a Hindu temple in Troy and getting a tour. And to keep in the spirit of the trip, lunch will follow at the Star of India right here in Ferndale. We like to keep things in Ferndale as much as we can. And our restaurant for February is Mitchell's Fish Market, and that will be on Thursday, the 20th. And as always, the seniors have casino shuttles. So for more details on these trips or on the meetings, you can call the community center. It's 544-6767, or you can go ahead and just call me, 541-5888. and I might answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeannie. Next for presentations is our added item for adopting a resolution acknowledging January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month in the city of Ferndale. And I'm going to let Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May introduce our guest speaker and why this was important to you.
I'm trying to remember. Blair.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Well, this was important to me because, one, I noticed that, for one, a lot of people have gone missing. And there was actually a presentation that was done last year at the MML conference with Colleen. And I remembered that presentation, and it just resonated with me so much that I thought the message should get out to our community and to see what we can do as a community to be aware, look out for individuals, and report things that are just don't seem right to us. So please, proceed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And do I have about 10 minutes? Is that correct? Okay. So my name is Blair Grin. I am the Civil Advocacy Supervisor at Haven, which is Oakland County's Center for Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. I'm also a proud Ferndale resident. I will start just by giving the caveat that Haven does serve sex trafficking survivors, but we are not specifically a sex trafficking agency per se, so you might not see us come up on lists if you were to do a search of, local advocacy and resources. But I wanted to put that out there, that we do serve those types of survivors, and all of our services are free and confidential, and we do have the capability of working with not just your run-of-the-mill, day-to-day sexual assault survivors, but we do have the ability to meet the needs of more comprehensive cases like trafficking. So we know that human trafficking is the business of stealing freedom for profit. It's essentially modern-day slavery. We know that traffickers will trick, defraud, or even use physical force to get victims into selling sex. Sex trafficking is a crime using force, fraud, or coercion to induce another person to sell sex. So force could be things like beatings, rape, sexual assault, confinement, torture. Fraud could be things like making false promises, withholding money, blackmail, extortion, lying about offering to give someone a better life or a better opportunity. Victims might be tricked into a situation through like a fraudulent job offer, like a fake modeling contract. Coercion could be things like threats to harm or kill a family if there's somebody who is trafficked internationally. A lot of times there is that coercion and that looming threat that if you don't do what I say, the people that you love and care about back home are going to be suffering. Things like humiliation, creating a climate of fear and emotional abuse. So a lot of these dynamics go hand in hand with what we know about intimate partner violence and sexual violence. It's rooted in power and control. It's a very deliberate manipulation, intimidation, use of fraud, force, coercion. So the things that fall under the umbrella of sex trafficking are things like escort services, pornography, massage businesses, brothels, forced marriages, and even outdoor solicitation like street-level sex work. And I want to make the distinction that there are folks that willfully participate in the sex trade. They're sex workers. What we're talking about is trafficking victims. There is a big distinction, and the big distinction is that it's not consensual. It's not something that someone's willfully engaging in as a participant. It's somebody who's being victimized through this force, fraud, coercion. So you're going to hear that over and over, force, fraud, coercion. Those are kind of the three pillars that make up trafficking. What I'm a lot less familiar with is labor trafficking. I just wanted to mention that too, that the kind of two big prongs of trafficking involve either sex trafficking or labor. So that's a crime of force, fraud, coercion to induce someone to do work or provide services. That kind of stuff is more like agricultural work, domestic work, working in restaurants, hotels, cleaning services, and even carnivals. So that, I will be candid, is not my forte. Like, I really don't know much about that. But shifting back to the sex trafficking piece, we know that a lot of vulnerable people are recruited by traffickers because they're on the margins. They might not have adequate support systems. We know that a lot of LGBTQ+ youth, especially if they're runaways or if they're transient, they are prime targets for a lot of traffickers because of that marginalization. We know that traffickers will exploit those vulnerabilities and compel them to get into sex trafficking. So you can be trafficked by an intimate partner, someone that you were in a relationship with, if you have children together, your boyfriend, spouses, or you could be trafficked by family members, friends, or strangers. And I think the word trafficking implies that there's like the physical moving from location to location, but in theory, you can be trafficked in your own house. You can be trafficked in your own neighborhood, which is why as a community as tight-knit as Ferndale is not immune to trafficking, because it can happen under your own nose in like the house going on right next door to you. So it is important that we are vigilant and we look out for what are the signs and symptoms to be vigilant about. We know that anyone who is under 18 selling sex is legally identified as a trafficking victim. There's no such thing as a teenage prostitute. The way that the law is defined in Michigan, anyone under the age of 18, you can't consent to doing that. So it's victimization. So in terms of what to look for, if you have somebody who has an older or controlling parent, guardian, or an intimate partner, or a quote-unquote sponsor, perhaps they won't allow the victim to meet alone with somebody. If their movements are being monitored, if their spending and their communications are monitored or limited in any way. There are specific recruiting behaviors. So I liken it a lot to what we see with domestic violence cases where there's an initial period of showering somebody with love and attention and affection, making promises of a better life and like initially coming off as a really, really great partner, super charismatic and charming. But really it's a falsehood, and it is something that leads to long-term mind control and manipulation. So they do target people who are more vulnerable, like minors, runaways. They might be actively recruiting at places like foster homes, group homes, shelters, even high schools. So we start to see things that are very, very similar to domestic violence situations, like a jealous or controlling boyfriend, the inability for someone to make eye contact because they're not allowed. You might see visible injuries and bruises, their restricted behavior and communication. Perhaps they don't have access to their own ID and documentation. So it's a very intentional breaking down of somebody's independence, their ability to set boundaries, their ability to move about freely and make decisions. It is very intentional manipulation through that fraud and coercion piece. So the reasons people don't leave are very similar to the reasons why people don't leave domestic violence relationships. That confinement, fear, shame, blaming themselves, and ultimately they might feel love or loyalty to their abuser or pimp, and they're very isolated. When you're in a situation like that, you don't have a dedicated support system to intervene or check on you, because the control that traffickers have goes very deep. So. I did provide a couple printouts, and I saw there was already one back there at the sign-in sheet, but I did leave, our Attorney General for Michigan, Dana Nessel, has on the AG's website a red flag list for human trafficking for the general public, as well as for first responders. So things like the general public to watch out for. So maybe it's a victim who's working and living at the same place. They lack the freedom to leave their work or living conditions. They're often kept under surveillance or taken someplace. They might not even know their own personal address. Signs of abuse like those physical injuries, malnourishment, lack of health care, exhibiting things like fear, anxiety, and depression, not in control of their own money. So these are the things to look out for. And there are national level human trafficking hotlines that we can utilize, and that is going to be on the list here if anybody wants to grab it. It's 888-3737-888. And I have noticed since I've started this work 11 years ago, back in 2008, human trafficking was starting to become more of a hot topic and a buzzword, and there certainly are a lot more resources, task forces, on the community level, on the state level, on the federal level. So there are some local agencies in addition to Haven that are working on these kinds of things. There is a human trafficking clinic out of University of Michigan Law School, Alternatives for Girls in Detroit, Ellie's House Detroit, Wayne County Safe, Alabaster Gift, Sanctum House, Common Ground in Pontiac, I know, has a trafficking-specific advocate, the Michigan Abolitionist Project, and Vista Maria. So there are lots of opportunities to search for resources if you just go online, and if you even go to the Michigan Attorney General's website, there's a list of resources. The Polaris Project has a really comprehensive list of resources too. So I'm glad that as a community we are starting to rally and build awareness to respond to this. So thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Yes. Oh, okay.
Good evening.
Chief Palazzolo, I think you're part of the presentation too
Obviously,
tonight.
this is an important topic. When I saw it came up, there's one person that came to mind, and I know Blair, and I thank her for all her time. I printed those out for you and put them in back. That's all stuff that we train on at the police department. But as soon as I saw this come up, Consuelo is a great friend of ours. Consuelo Lopez is a co-chair of Detroit Advocate and Leaders for Police and Community Trust. She is a co-chair with Sergeant Brown. She also runs a executive director of the Almeida, whose mission focuses on victim community advocacy and law enforcement engagement. Consuelo leads a solutionary-based Metro Detroit anti-human trafficking council of diverse cultural grassroots organizations working together to improve our collective response to crimes against children and adults. I'd like to add that Consuelo is a proud native Detroiter and a proud Puerto Rican heritage, and she is a really fun person to be around, and you guys had to meet her, so I'll give the floor to Consuelo.
Welcome, thank you for coming.
Hola, saludos, everyone. So, I don't know, I kind of want to look at everyone. So, Michigan is known as being number 10 in the nation as it relates to human trafficking. But a lot of people don't understand or know that we're also number 2 when it comes to recovery of children and adults who were victims. And the most important thing that I want to stress is that, yes, this month is all about awareness, but after this month ends, it's about moving forward and being actively engaged. And what that means is having an emotional responsibility for one another. I don't know what Ferndale is known for, but I know Detroit was known for as being a big city with a little town feel. And as the sister was speaking, human trafficking, the idea is that it's a white truck, a white van that's going around, driving around, trying to pick up people. But the real thing is, it's internal. It's in our homes. It's in our schools. And we have to start asking questions and not being afraid to talk to our children. And when I mean children, I'm talking about our children under the age of 30, including college, because they also are susceptible. They're not paying attention to their social media digest or anything like that. So we have to start asking our children, who are you playing the game with on when they're playing? And we have a tendency to give a computer or a telephone or a cell phone to our kids and not really monitor who they're talking to. So for me, the word that I would like to leave with you all today is solutionary. Solutionary means that your answers is legacy driven, that it can be taught and retaught for our children, because what's the point of us doing all of this if we're not helping them and teaching them to protect themselves, to protect us in the long run. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May, would you like to read the resolution for council adoption?
I would.
Go ahead.
At the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Ferndale, held in council chambers on the 27th of January 2020, Human trafficking is a real problem facing the world today, and although it can take many forms, including debt, bondage, forced marriage, slavery, and commercial sexual exploitation, in every case it goes against the core principles of individual freedom and civil rights that our state and nation stand for. The City of Ferndale is committed to ensuring that our community remains on the front lines in combating this deplorable crime, and due to its secretive and illegal nature, it is difficult to accurately quantify the extent of human trafficking. However, the U.S. State Department estimates that anywhere between 600,000 to 800,000 people are trafficked across international borders, women or children who have been marginalized and isolated from society. The difficulty in grasping the full scope of this problem can be further compounded because people often turn a blind eye to it. The first step in eliminating human traffic is to educate others. We must work to ensure that our residents are aware of this problem and how to spot it. We must work together as a community so that human traffickers are punished and to protect and assist their victims. Through the vigilance and perseverance of our citizens, effective enforcement of justice will someday be a reality. And the U.S. Department of Justice defines human trafficking as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt, bondage, or slavery. Therefore, be it resolved that the Ferndale City Council declares January 2020 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month. We ask all residents of this community to join us in this raising of the visibility of this crime, whose victims are often too invisible. Together, we can become more informed about this pressing issue and work to combat its injustices. May I give the resolution to our presenter, Blair? She's still here. Okay.
Yes. Why don't, before you do that, let's
Do a
have a motion
Okay.
and we'll approve the resolution. Can I have a motion, please?
Of course. Where is our motion? Thank you.
Right here.
I move that the City of Ferndale, we adopt the resolution acknowledging January as Human Trafficking Awareness Month in the City of Ferndale.
Support.
Can we have roll call, please? Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember James?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski?
Yes.
And Mayor Piana.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that forward and providing the resolution.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is our fourth presentation, and it is the marijuana report from our planning manager, Justin Lyons.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. All right, thank you. So just wanted to give an update. So per the city's marijuana ordinance, section 24-65, staff is required to present city council a report and recommendation that summarizes the feedback from key departments, including planning, police, fire, code enforcement, building, and the report and recommendation are to include, it's generally all about regarding the types and limits of the marijuana facilities. That's how it's worded in the ordinance. So I've got a little bit of background on some of the ordinance, or excuse me, some of the legislation that's changed over the years, and then where things are at respectively with the medical marijuana and the recreational marijuana processes, and then, of course, the formal report, which was included in your packet along with this presentation. So just getting right into it, this is a brief history. I think most people in the room may be familiar, but just as a reminder, initially there was some medical marijuana regulations at the state level in 2008 and 2016. The City of Ferndale adopted ordinances related to those medical regulations and has since then updated those ordinances based on the recreational regulations that passed in 2018. So communities were given some guidance from the state of Michigan in the form of emergency rules last July 3rd. And then that should say, Laura did start accepting applications November 1st, and the city updated their ordinance around that time as well. Regarding medical marijuana, so there are 3 permitted provisioning centers that are open in the city of Ferndale. The 3 are listed there as well, and I believe the business owners are here tonight as well. So that officially started the ordinance mandated reporting period. So September 13th, when facilities were open, police, fire, building and planning, code enforcement, everyone was knew that was when the time started to taking a look at making sure that there's no code safety, licensing issues from there. Aside from the 3 approved provisioning centers, there were 7 other provisioning center applications that are in the queue, still in the queue today. Those applications have not been reviewed. They are just with city staff, and in case there are any changes directed from city council. The ordinance does also permit 1 safety compliance facility. No one has applied for that so far. Had a lot of conversations with interested parties, but nothing moved forward from there. And then there are 2 existing non-conforming medical marijuana facilities under the original state regulations. They're allowed to continue to operate under the state regulations, and then their special land use approvals that came through city council a few years ago. Regarding recreational marijuana, as I said, city council did amend the marijuana ordinances to align with the new definitions of all the establishments that are permitted under the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act. There are 3, our city ordinance permits 3 state licensed marijuana retailers. There's a whole lot of different technical language that was in that ordinance, but these are just some of the highlights in that provisioning centers, so the existing medical marijuana provisioning centers, those could co-locate with retailers if they also have a state retail license, operating license for retailer. The city's application process began December 1st of last year, and so by ordinance, I believe the review process begins on or around March 1st of this year, where city council would take all of those applications from the city clerk and review them based on the criteria that is listed in the ordinance noted there. That's also on the back of the application when interested parties are considering applying. As of today, no one has applied, but there's been a lot of general interest, I would say, so I would expect to see some applications before that March 1st timeline. So regarding the report, medical marijuana provisioning centers have been a new use, so council included in the ordinance that they wanted to get some data and see what's been happening or what would happen with this new use. So multiple inspections were completed during the building permit process in order for these facilities to get their certificate of occupancy. Any business in the city, they get a certificate of occupancy to open, make sure that they're safe and meeting all the building code criteria, and in this instance, state criteria as well. So these facilities did receive their state operating licenses for medical provisioning centers. There's been consistent and periodic inspections by the police department since these facilities have opened. And in talking with all of the departments involved, there's been no observed issues related to safety, security, or code enforcement. The state also has a pretty handy website, the Michigan Regulatory Agency. They allow pretty easily for people to look up and see if licenses are valid. All 3 of those licenses that are for facilities operating in Ferndale are valid as of today. And so along with that report, a recommendation was required, and so we talked internally about what that recommendation could be, should be, and so it was related to the types and limits of marijuana facilities. And so, as I said, the previous limits for licenses was 3, each for provisioning centers and for retailers, and staff had thought that a recommendation of increasing each of those different use types by 2 aligns with the previous license amount from a few years ago under the Medical Marijuana Facility, or the MMMA Act. And that the thought with that being that gives an opportunity for the next 2 applicants in the marijuana provisioning center in the queue that is just sitting of people that have applied, that would give them an opportunity if council wishes. So that was the recommendation, but city council, is not compelled to take action tonight. So you'll see we did include a motion as part of our recommendation. That motion effectively states that city council would accept this report and that the ordinance would be studied. Any potential changes to an ordinance would be studied by the planning commission and staff. So there's not like anything where council would change the number tonight. It's really council would consider directing staff and the planning commission to see if it does make sense to make a change to the ordinance or not. I included some potential steps on this process and a generic, tentative timeline. But that really, again, is up to council and what studies, if council does wish to have this studied further. Staff did receive a letter late today that was given to city council at each chair that was from the 3 marijuana provisioning centers that are operating in Ferndale. And I know that there's, I think, plenty of folks that are probably here to ask questions and hear council's thoughts on this, but I wanted to share that there was one group that did, the group of 3 did contact us.
To clarify, that letter has been printed and provided to City Council, just for the public record.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update and the presentation. Tonight was just to have a overview and presentation of where we are per the ordinance, and so that was staff's responsibility to bring to city council tonight. So council has some choices that they have to proceed going forward. One is to accept the presentation and move on and direct the next steps as outlined in slide 7, which are the dates put forward by Mr. Lyons, or we can also pass a motion tonight, right, directing Mr. Lyons to go ahead with the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
Right, through the chair, you could simply receive the report and move on with the balance of the council's agenda, or there is a proposed ordinance, a proposed motion that would, consistent with the report, direct that it be studied and reviewed by the Planning Commission as it relates to any future recommendations that might come back to council in the future. Those really are the two options. If council wishes to adopt and move for the proposed motion, it would be appropriate to, after the motion is made and seconded, to allow for the audience to provide comment with respect to the motion prior to council deliberating on the motion.
Okay. With those 2 options, what's the pleasure of council?
I move to receive the marijuana report submitted by the city manager's designee, Justin Lyons, planning manager, in accordance with the ordinance requirement of section 24-165C of the Ferndale Code, and to direct staff to refer the marijuana report to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation of whether to increase the number of medical marijuana provisioning centers and marijuana retailers by 2 additional permits, which would increase each permit type to the total of 5 permits, and requesting that Planning Commission undertake such review as soon as practical.
I second.
Do we need to do roll call, or can we do?
Through the chair, at this point, since the motion's been made
Oh,
and
yes,
seconded,
thank
if you
you.
were going to ask for any comments on the motion, or if there's
Yes.
public comment with respect to the motion.
Thank you for that. Right now, I'll open it up for public comment on the motion, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and if someone else in the audience has already suggested or made your similar comment, please refrain to saying something new in addition on top of that. Thank you. Who would like to be the first? Good to see you tonight. Welcome back.
Ladies and gentlemen of City Council, Your Honorable Mayor, Council. I'm Todd Levy. I'm here on behalf of Gage, which is one of your current licensees at 1551 Academy. You received our letter today. We're kind of together, all of the applicants and all of your licensees currently operating in the city. As kind of set forth in the letter, we are concerned that there would be a dilutive effect on supply, right? The biggest problem in the market right now is supply. There are not enough growers producing enough product. I don't know if you've been in these stores, but a lot of the times there's a shortage of supply. We also have Berkeley, Detroit, Royal Oak is making a move, Warren's making a move, Centerline's making a move. There's a lot of provisioning centers out there. There's not a lot of grows. That's the main problem. So personally, and with the other applicants' licensees, we have serious concerns about increasing the number of retail outlets and provisioning centers set forth in the letter. And I think that the shortage of supply argument actually dovetails in with our interest over at Gage. I think the report should have also studied processors and producers. I didn't see anything about that at all. We actually had some of the members of the police here in Ferndale come to the Gage facility in Warren to kind of tour one of our grows. And I'll let them make their comment, but at least what they conveyed to us, they were very impressed with the cleanliness and the security. So I think that report, before you make your motion, should have included processors and producers. We actually own the building, and Casper Electric is moving out in July. That would be a great place to put a grow. It's a lot safer, than anything, and everything is safe to begin with. So to kind of sum that all up, us licensees who are operating are concerned about a dilutive effect on supply, patient base, and as personal for Gage, I think that we should consider processors and producers in the city. That's all I have. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is David Schaefer. I'm here on behalf of Michigan Health Collective and the current operator of one of the two non-conforming marijuana facilities that have special land use approval. And really our concern about this whole issue is that the initial Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act had in it certain requirements that kept many of the people that wanted to provide medicine to their patients out of the market because of financial requirements that were in there. There were bottlenecks at the state level which kept people from getting pre-qualified for a long time. So those that were lucky enough to get in the door were able to apply and have been able to get licenses, and you now have three what sounds like very good businesses in the city. We generally support the idea of expanding the number of local permits that would be available. Our one suggestion would be is that rather than just strictly going back to the queue that's already in place, rather than having those applications evaluated on a first-come, first-served basis, we would suggest that the Planning Commission should consider whether those applications should be evaluated on the merits, such as the retail licenses will be done under the existing ordinance. That would require additional amendments to the city's ordinance, but we think that would be more fair to people that have been in the industry and trying to supply a product to their patients for years already, and were unable to get into the state license side due to delays on pre-qualification or insecurities on the finances up front. Beyond that, we think it's generally a good idea. I acknowledge there is a problem with supply right now at the in the state market. Some of that has to do with reluctance, I think, of certain municipalities to allow growers in, and so there aren't enough growers for the number of locations that are out there. But I don't think that's directly related to Ferndale's current proposal to increase the number of permits or retail locations, unless Ferndale did decide to bring in some growers into the city as well. Beyond that, we also just wanted to bring to the council's attention some concern that we've heard within the industry and that my clients share as well, which is that some people feel there isn't really much of a point in applying for a retail permit in Ferndale right now because some perceive that maybe those permits are already predetermined or predestined to go to the three current provisioning center permit holders, regardless of the objective criteria that's provided in the ordinance. I don't want to suggest that the council would condone such behaviors, but we have seen across the state in a number of different cities various issues that have come up when it comes to actually applying these facially objective criteria. And so we would just hope that the Planning Commission would consider, when it's reviewing this report and the proposals, not only the increase of the license allowed permits themselves, but also whether we should be reassessing how the medical permit applications are going to be evaluated rather than just doing them on a first-come, first-served basis. That's really just going to perpetuate the problems that were originally in place with the old state licensing provisions and the bottleneck at the state level. And that's all we have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Good evening.
Good
Welcome.
evening. My name is Peter Tangelos. I represent the Green Buddha location, one of your licensed locations. Our position is that, I just want to give you a brief background of what's happening in the market. The 3 medical locations that we have right now in Michigan, the entire client base for those 3 medical locations is 270,000 patients. We've gone out and we've done everything that the city has asked us. We've spent millions of dollars. Okay, we've abided by all the rules. We were able to obtain the licenses. We've been in operation for 2 or 3 months trying to get our feet under us with all the money that we've expended and all the investment that we put in the city and into this business. Recreational is months away, which will expand our business into the greater population because then it's just 21 and over. Our position is we don't mind having the city do what it wants to do. What we would say is give us room to breathe. Extend this time period until we figure out what recreational will do to the market. Right now, all your information and all your data is merely based on the medical market here. And it's really based on security reviews and not what the impact of recreational will do to the marketplace on traffic patterns, on security, and all sorts of things. To me, the prudent thing will be, and it's also in our interest, I'm not going to say that it's not in our interest, to defer to see what we're going to do. And that way you have more data to investigate and determine whether or not 2 more are required, or they are. At this point, all your data is just based on the medical information that you have. Again, we don't mind if you have your information and then try to expand, but we are now asking for your help. We've done everything possible that you've asked us. We've invested millions of dollars in the city, the 3 of us. Every day, and the business right now is just not doing well because it's only based on medical patients. And the prices are so high that our costs of goods have gone high. So it's been very, very difficult on us, despite our investment in this business. And what I'm asking you here tonight is for your help, honestly, to help us. We've invested so much money into the city. Give us a break. Let us breathe. Take into account our investment. Let us breathe when we get recreational, if you choose to give us recreationals, if we're good citizens, and let us have a chance. And that way you'll have more information and we'll have a chance to breathe too, because we made a significant investment in the city, and we're trying to do the best we can. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very much. Is there anybody else who would be interested in coming up for a public comment on this topic? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up for discussion for City Council. There is a motion on the table. Is there any comment from City Council at this time?
I'll just say that the reason I made the motion that I did is because I think that the Planning Commission should have an opportunity to review this and have input from a public point of view, from a resident point of view. And so I look forward to the discussion that the Planning Commission will have. If they feel that 3 is sufficient in the city, that's the decision and the recommendation that the Planning Commission will make and will bring to council, and council can decide at that time. Or they may decide that 5 is, there's room in the community for 5 locations. I'm leaving it up to the Planning Commission for that conversation.
I support Polika, Councilman Polika. This has been the process for the last 5 years, is going back to the Planning Commission to get a recommendation, particularly when there is an increase in the number of businesses from our original intentions. And I think, for me, there's always been support for 5, even though the recreation wasn't yet available, but now it's back, so we would go back to the Planning Commission, and I'm very supportive of that process to see what our members would recommend to council. Any other comments from council? Okay, can we have roll call, Marnie, for the motion on the table?
Councilmember James,
Excuse me. Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May,
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski,
Yes.
Councilmember Polika,
Yes.
and Mayor Priano.
Yes. So we will hear from you again, Mr. Lyons.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the call to audience. We welcome your comments, and please refrain to keeping your comments to 3 minutes, and ensure that anything you would like to talk about is not currently on the agenda. Who would like to join us at the podium? Well, this is very unusual.
It is
I think
unusual.
that's a first.
Oh, I think
We have one? Thank you. Thank you for making the call to audience happen tonight. Come on up.
Hi. My name is Bashar Damouni. I'm trying to open a store in Ferndale, a franchise store, UPS store. And a few months ago in summer, I asked, is there a possibility of having limited time parking or a dedicated parking for the store? They said it could happen. They told me to proceed with the landlord to do everything together. I went till I was supposed to sign the contract 2 days ago, and 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I get an answer from the city that, no, we cannot give you any parking. It's paid. Okay, I'll pay for the time of the day. Give me dedicated parking. No, we cannot because others. Few minutes parking, 10, 15 minutes parking, just so that I can get this franchise in the city, they cannot. So after all that, they recommended that if I come here and speak up and tell you my problem, so that if there's a solution, and I believe there is a solution for everything. Maybe today the parking structure is taking time. It needs few more months. The business also, it needs few more months so that it runs. But I can't sign a contract. Already I've paid a lot of money, but I can't proceed from here unless I get a good answer regarding the parking, because no one, UPS is a small business solution kind of business. No one will drop off any mail or Amazon return in case you do not have a parking. They'll not go figure out how to pay or put $0.25. I'm ready to pay it. I don't have a problem. But I can't just put one employee just to manage parkings. So what can be done in this situation?
Well, I'm going to direct you to our city manager to review your situation.
Through the chair, I was first notified this actually towards the holidays, late December, so this wasn't really addressed to me until then. However, I did provide an opinion and consulted with the DDA, and the first finding was that we should hold on deviating any parking system policies until the construction of the dot is complete, because we don't understand the impacts of the systems. And two, there's really other considerations of the businesses and the users of those parking spaces aside from this single business. That's not to say it's not important. That's not to say your concerns aren't valid. But that is to say that we don't have a history of adopting parking policies with specific individual business requests.
And just to clarify, this is for public parking spaces on street dedicated to a business.
The request was a number of parking spaces in the rear parking lot, which is owned by the municipality. That would be behind Boogie Fever, to give you a frame of reference. And then there was also an additional request to consider on-street spaces along Woodward that are currently not 15-minute parking.
That is our current policy at this time. We've had other businesses ask for dedicated parking spots in our public spaces, and those are for everyone, not dedicated to certain businesses, unless you purchase employee permits, right, where they could park in those parking lots throughout the day.
Those are permit eligible, not permit guaranteed.
Permit eligible, not permit guaranteed. I hope that staff can help find a available spot for you, but it sounds like this particular spot has already, you've received the appropriate guidance from the city manager. Is that what I'm hearing?
Both the DDA director and the city manager weighed in on the issue, yes.
Okay.
One more thing to add. If it's not a dedicated parking, I don't have a problem, but few minutes free parking from the front, from the back. The store has dual entrance, so the free few minutes, 10, 15 minutes, I'm not the only one that will benefit from it. Businesses around will also benefit from it. I'm not like, okay, no, dedicated or not. There's other options that we can maybe think of.
Well, I appreciate your suggestion, and it's something that we'll take back to the DDA for parking policy discussions. Nothing happens overnight for these types of changes, but I appreciate you coming out tonight and explaining your situation and providing some suggestions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other audience members who'd like to have their say? If not, I'm going to close call to audience and move on to the consent agenda. I'm going to read the consent agenda. 6A, approval of January 13th, 2020 regular and special meeting minutes as submitted by the city clerk. 6B, approval of the reappointment of PJ, I'm going to say it wrong, Jacobs and Jerome Raska to the Downtown Development Authority Board as submitted by city clerk. Approval of the storm water drainage facility maintenance agreement for the 409 on 9 development as submitted by the planning manager. Approval to purchase 1 year of accreditation and data management software and service from Power DMS for $4,496.86 from the appropriate account as submitted by the police captain. 6E, approval to renew annual software agreement with ESRIGS Services in the amount of $4,201.37, paid from account numbers as listed, as submitted by the GIS technician. And 6F, approval of the bills and payrolls as submitted by the city manager's office and subject to review by the city finance committee. What is the pleasure of city council tonight?
I move that we accept the consent agenda item as presented.
Support.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Excellent. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May,
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski,
Yes.
Councilmember Polika,
Yes.
Councilmember James,
Yes.
and Mayor Piana.
Yes. Next up is our regular agenda, and one item on the agenda tonight is 7A, consideration to appoint Sarah Brown to the Downtown Development Authority Board. And I welcome Downtown Development Authority Executive Director Lena Stevens. Welcome.
Good evening. I am Lena Stevens, Executive Director of the Ferndale Downtown Development Authority. I'm excited tonight to be recommending Sarah Brown's appointment to the DDA, and Sarah is here. There we go. I'm going to stand up for just a minute. Hi, thank you for coming. And this is your partner, Cameron. I wanted to recognize both of you. Sarah, you can sit. This is going to take me a minute. Sarah is the co-founder of CrossFit HCS. And she also bought her first home in Ferndale, so I think that's kind of a cool perspective that she brings. Sarah brings a voice and a perspective that I really think is going to be helpful as the DDA looks to the future. We're looking to be more solution-oriented and really looking for, constructive conversations about how we can tackle problems and move towards the next generation of what Ferndale is going to be. And I think she has demonstrated a very clear ability and interest in working in collaboration and partnership. So she's been engaged with the DDA and the city on the capital improvement plan for the DDA, the sanitation study that's going on right now, and the Baker College conversation, I think. I was not here for that, so I think that's probably the best way to put that. She has a bachelor's degree in business from Howard University in DC and an MBA from U of M. Her professional background really focuses on the auto industry, and I think that's actually her experience there is also going to be very helpful. She's in kind of supply chain relationship management, so she's done purchasing management, so everything from kind of the bids to taking that through vendor management and planning and budgeting for marketing and advertising. So I'm really excited to welcome her, and if you have any questions about her. If you'd like her to come up and give you a quick hello, we'd be glad to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sarah,
you
would
want to come up
on
real quick?
I know it's the first time I've been up here for like something positive.
We hope for many more.
But hello, everyone. As she already mentioned, Sarah Brown. I've been living in Ferndale now as a permanent resident and homeowner since the middle of summer, but I've been here for over 2 years now when we opened our business, as well as being in Michigan since 2015. Really happy to be here and excited with your approval to be able to serve the city a little bit more.
Thank you very much. So I'm really excited to have Ms. Brown join the DDA board, and really excited for her perspective and voice, not only with the downtown businesses, but I think her worldview matches a lot of what Ferndale is striving for, and I appreciate that on our DDA. This is a mayoral appointee, and traditionally the DDA executive director with significant input from the DDA Executive Committee and the board put forth recommendations for the mayor to consider. And I have met personally with Ms. Brown and believe this is a great applicant for the DDA at this time. The DDA has also had significant leadership changeover in the last year in parallel with the city council. And so I really appreciate all of the DDA at this time. For those who we just reapproved tonight for another term, Mr. Raska as well as PJ Jacokes, continuing on serving. So we have a really strong DDA board, and I think Sarah's presence will even make it stronger.
With that, I would like to confirm the appointment of Sarah Brown to the Downtown Development Authority Board for a term ending December 31st, 2023.
Support. Can we have a little more discussion?
Yes, more discussion if you want.
Yeah, I want to chime in. Ultimately, I support the nomination and confirmation of Sarah on the DDA, and I'm glad that she sort of broke the tension and said something humorous about coming up here for something positive for once, because I actually think that her critical eye is something that is going to make her a really productive board member on the DDA. I have experienced Sarah and her business partner and husband Cameron a little bit because I was on the Baker Project Study Committee, and I experienced them asking a lot of probing questions and really wanting to delve deeply into the potentialities for that project. I also communicated with Sarah a little bit over a sanitation issue, which is what led to her participation in the city's sanitation program. She's, an advocate not only for her own business, but for her business neighbors and for the greater neighborhood in general. So I think that kind of firm, critical, productive eye is really important moving forward.
Through the chair? Yes. Councilwoman James, you summed that up very, very well. I haven't worked with Sarah directly, but I know through your participation over the last year, you've been very involved, very active, and sharing your thoughts, positive and negative, to the council, and I appreciate that. So I welcome your continued participation on the DDA board.
If you don't mind, I'll jump in as well. Sarah, thank you so much for talking to me on Friday. I'm so excited to see both of you here. I'm so glad that you've been involved with the city, and I really do look forward to having you join the DDA.
Excellent. Well, with that, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Mikulski.
Support.
Councilmember Polika.
Yes.
Councilmember James.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
Yes.
And Mayor Piana.
Yes. Welcome to the DDA, and I look forward to our first meeting. Excellent. Well, next up is our call to council. We have a short regular agenda tonight. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask if there's any comment from our police chief.
Two times in one night. Want to give you a few updates. Number one, it's been 2 weeks. Sergeant Brown, even with his bad knees, is running full steam ahead with accreditation. We're at 68% right now.
Wow.
I think we're at 54%. I just do want to clarify one thing. There's two parts to accreditation. Once we hit 100%, that means all the policies, directives, and the guidelines are in place. There's 105 of those points that need to be hit. The second part of accreditation is to do and collect proofs to prove that we're actually doing the things that our policies and directives say we are doing. So that is going to take some additional time. So to be at 100% will be relatively quickly. Now it's collecting all the proofs to prove that we're doing actually what we're saying. And this could be in the form of subpoenas, videos, police reports. There's a myriad of things that could encompass. So just want to clarify that. The second initiative for the police department was to train the entire city on a safety plan. We are projecting to hit that by July 1st. And one thing that was impressive, I wanted to give Sergeant Danielson a little bit of kudos. This was a commend police officer by the Ferndale Labs, and I'll read it. 781 East 8 Mile Road. This came through our city website. Chief Palazzolo, on behalf of Ferndale Laboratories, I would like to recognize and commend Sergeant Janessa Danielson for outstanding workplace violence prevention training programs and support. Over the past 1.5 years, Sergeant Danielson has trained over 140 of our employees in best practices to promote safe work environment. All her presentations were informative, impactful, and empowering. She also supported our safety efforts by touring our facility, making recommendations, and providing written resources to help improve our processes. Sergeant Danielson has exceeded our expectation. We are honored and grateful to have her partner with us. Thank you for your support, our colleagues, with this life-saving program. She's also worked with Credit Union One and various other businesses. So she's a great asset to the department, and this active shooter style training is something that we do offer to the public. So if you are interested, we will help guide you in formatting policies and best practices. Go ahead and go to the website, give me an email, and then I'll forward that to Sergeant Danielson. We'll prioritize and get you involved.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
I actually went online to research the software that we just approved tonight and saw a video how it actually works. So I have a better understanding how you're going to log all those policies.
In days past, there would be a room that you would have all of these files that you would have to do by hand. It's a long process. This makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, well, I look also forward to hearing how much money we save and paper we save by going online. So that was a big sell point of that software.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chief. Fire Chief.
Good evening. I have two topics today. The first is the File of Life program. If you're not familiar with this, the fire department along with the police department are going to join hands in this and offer this to the community. I'm trying to roll it out in March. And it is a personal medical medication form. You take it and you would offer it to the community. They would fill this out. You could have the help of police, fire, or volunteers like CERT, like Councilwoman Mikulski. And then you would fold this up and put it on your refrigerator with this refrigerator magnet. We have buy-in through Jeannie Davis's group and the seniors, as well as the Heather Ann Pucher and the Housing Commission, as well as Devin Trace, and we want to offer it to the whole community. We're going to start out with 1,000 units and see where it goes. We'll also get with Kara and advertise it through social media as well. It will have a police and fire logo. And then this is just crucial information we can put down. It's still private. It won't violate any HIPAA laws. It's yours to keep if you were a participant. It goes on your refrigerator. Oftentimes police show up at a scene before fire. They can relay the information to their new emergency medical dispatch that they're going through, and that'll increase times where we can get them to the hospital faster, figure out what's going on. So it's a life-saving device, and I really am excited about it. Second, you may have heard that we had a big hazmat incident Friday. So at the CN rail yard, we got a call for a overturned tanker. It was a tanker that was just loaded on an intermodal tote from a train car onto a semi-truck. It took a turn, got a flat tire in a pothole, rolled over on its side. It had 52,000 pounds of divinyl benzene, which is highly toxic and flammable. Not one drop was lost, thank goodness. We did a box alarm and called in the hazmat team from Oakland County, as well as CN's dangerous goods officers. We had to call in Ballard Towing, which is, they work in conjunction with the hazmat team. They specialize in turning over large trucks and tankers. They had two 80,000-pound, capable of lifting 80,000 pounds each, tow trucks out there, and they lifted it without an incident. About 3 gallons of diesel fuel was lost, but it was, we had absorbent pads and everything, so it didn't get in the storm system or nothing. Everything was cleaned up. The tank's outer jacket cracked. It was about a 6-foot crack, and the inner container was, there was no problems with the integrity of it. They loaded it on a truck, took it out to Dow out in Midland, and did transport there. So I'm happy to say that nothing happened, and we had a great response from Oakway.
Please send them our thanks.
Sure. Thank you.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, quick question before we lose you. So I happened to notice on social media earlier this weekend or this week, a Ferndale resident wondered what should they do if their carbon monoxide alarm goes off in their home. And I know that prevention is your number one priority. We've talked before about how you'd never like to be called in response. You'd like to prevent, fires and injuries from happening in the first place.
So if your alarm is going off, never be afraid to call 911. The police will get that information over to us, and we'll get over there and take care of it.
Okay.
We had one over the weekend at one of the businesses in town. Saturday night, their carbon monoxide went off. It was a faulty furnace, and we went over there and mitigated the situation. But never, I got to stress, never be afraid to call 911 for any emergency. And a smoke alarm going off in the middle of the night, that's an emergency. Carbon monoxide detector is an emergency. It's a big one.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Thank you.
And then one final question. Those,
all right.
the life, what did you call them again?
File of life.
Where do you recommend we store those? In our
Right up-
purse or in your garage, in your
Well,
glove compartment, or
So this
like
one,
more than one?
I want to start out with this one, and it can be for multiple family members too. So what we say is to put them on the refrigerator. If it's too ugly on your fridge, put it on the side of the fridge. And then when we get a call, police or fire, whoever's there first, always does an assessment called scene safety. And they just kind of scan the rooms and make sure there's no funny business or the first responders are going to get hurt. But they also look for any medications, like in the medicine cabinet and whatnot. So they're going to look on the refrigerator. And if they see this, they can grab it, pull it out, and start reading off, hey, this person's allergic to this, or they have a history of that. Special instructions for their medications and stuff. Because the ambulances carry about 50 medications, and a lot of them are contradicting other medications. So we've got to really watch what we're doing.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. Next, Parks and Rec. Lorena?
Good evening. Just a few general comments. Just a reminder, we have our annual Daddy-Daughter Dance on Saturday, February 8th, and it'll be taking place at Ferndale High School. Registration is still open. We're up to 130 at this time. And so last year we had close to 200, so we anticipate exceeding that. The prices will increase after February 2nd, so if anybody plans on attending, make sure you get your tickets before then so you can get the discount. In addition, I just want to give a special thanks to some of our contributors for this event this year, which is Blooms by Design as well as Vibe Credit Union. Secondly, I just have a great announcement. Lisa met with our Project Play grant administrators, and they've actually doubled our grant, so we will be getting $50,000 for a 2-year grant as opposed to $25,000 for a 1-year grant starting this summer. We will be, through that grant, we'll be offering mobile recreation, partnering with our local YMCA. So we'll be at different parks throughout the summer, having free events, as well as our equipment loan program, so residents can come into the rec center and check out equipment, sports equipment, or what have you, and just have fun in the parks over the summer and the winter. So again, it's a two-year grant for now $50,000 as opposed to $25,000. Thank you.
Very much. Is there anybody from DPW tonight? Oh. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Why don't we go to the Downtown Development Authority? Nothing? All right. Ms. Sokol, anything from the communications? Finance.
Good evening. In finance, we are full steam ahead with the budget process, so if you don't see me or if my door is closed, take heed. And the water meter program, from DPW, we've got about 1,243 installed. We have 167 scheduled. So we're very early in the process, but we're getting ready to switch to another section and start installing them. There is, it's going very well. Did you have yours done?
I did. My new one doesn't clunk anymore, so I'm very pleased.
Oh, that's good. And it was a painless process. So we're just trying to encourage people to call and schedule their appointment if you've gotten your door hangers. We've got several that have not reached back out to us, so we're still moving ahead.
Thank you very much. Community and Economic Development, Justin, or Jordan.
Just a couple quick announcements of things coming out of CED this month. The first is our Community Affordability and Inclusive Housing Action Plans community meeting. The first one is going to be February 26th here at City Hall, 6:30 p.m. It's an opportunity to get an update on the progress on that plan as well as provide input. And there's going to be a question and answer session with the project team. It'll be an opportunity for the public to provide feedback that will influence the final plan. So it's definitely not one to miss. If you go onto the city website, the big green buttons on the home page, if you click current projects, this project has a page there, and you can find these details there again. And at a minimum of 2 weeks out, so no later than that, so 2 weeks out before the meeting, we're going to be posting all the materials so people can kind of read them ahead of time and get familiar with what we'll be talking about, et cetera. So watch for that in the coming weeks. The other item is Ferndale's partnership with the Build Institute is going to be kicking off this spring. Watch in the next several weeks as promotional materials are being finalized by Build, but we're going to be opening up registration for what's called their Build Basics cohort. So 20 spots open. Small businesses or entrepreneurs or even somebody with an idea can take this course. It's an 8-week course. It'll start in early April. It'll end at the end of May, and we're actually going to be holding it at Incubizo over here in town, 1938 Burdette Street. We'll be putting that stuff online as soon as those promotional materials are done, but I just want to put it out there that that's happening. Build Institute's got a pretty long history of working with the city of Ferndale, churned out about 8 to 9 businesses over their time here, so it's a really great program, and this basics course is a really great way to really test out your idea and see where you're at. If you're not sure what stage you are in business, but you have a really great idea, or if you're pretty far along and you want to expand, it's a really, really great and tested course, and it's worked well for many Ferndale businesses and entrepreneurs. So we're really excited to have that stuff come online. You can call the CED department if you have questions, or just go to our department page, and we'll be putting that stuff online as soon as those promo materials are done. But you heard it here first, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is City Clerk, Marty.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to announce that AV applications are available for the March 10th election. Ballots are being processed right now, so which means that we're stuffing and labeling. So those will be going out either this week or next week. We have quite a number of them, so it kind of depends on how fast we can stuff and how many hours we have to do that. We did send out our overseas ballots over the weekend as required by the state. And I just wanted to kind of announce that we have been working with Granicus, our agenda management software, on a boards and commissions module. As part of the software package that we purchased from them. We're planning on rolling it out soon. We're hoping to have it by March, but at the February 10th meeting, we will be doing a little presentation, a sneak peek of how the program is going to work. It's going to really bring a lot of the things that we want from boards and commissions in one place for easy access, applications, rosters, vacancies, details about all the boards. So sneak peek coming soon.
And I did have a question. How many poll workers do you, or precinct workers do you need for this election? I saw a need for volunteers, and I was wondering if you have enough already.
We are always taking more applications, because even though we have a good base crew, you know, this time of year, because we don't often have a March election, there's a lot of people who might be out of town on vacation or just not available. So, and since it's going to be a huge election year, we are trying to get as much help as we can. So I would happily take as many people as can apply.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Dan for HR.
Good evening, Mayor Council. I just want to let you know that we are currently working with the DPW department to fill our open facilities manager position. We were fortunate enough to get 62 applications. From those 62 applications, 19 people attended an open house. From those 19 people in the open house, we found 9 very qualified candidates, so we're really excited about that pool to choose from. We'll be having oral boards tomorrow and the following day, and we look forward to filling the position within 10 days.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Parking. Is everybody from parking? Would you like to?
Just a little follow-up on the senior group, the senior parking permit program. So far, we have 22 people who've taken advantage of the senior parking permits. Again, the requirements for that are 65 or older, member of the Ferndale senior group, and a Ferndale resident.
Thank you very much.
That's about it.
Thank you. And Dan, legal counsel, anything?
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing this evening.
And city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few issues I wanted to follow up on 2 study requests that were made at the previous city council meeting. The first one, there was a request that staff study a request that the Ferndale Community Concert Symphony be included as part of the Ferndale Arts and Culture Commission. The city manager's office is studying that. I don't have anything to report back today, but I did want to note that that request was made, and we're following through on that. And we expect to present council with information in the coming weeks. The second request was around the issue of public notices and how we might expand and include different digital advertising as part of a transparency effort for public notices. That too we're studying as well. We have to consult with our legal counsel and just internally, and we hope to present findings at City Council in the coming agendas in February. I would note that we are in the midst of budget season, so we're moving along according to plans. Right now, February really marks the internal committee process month, but I would expect it in the coming council meetings in February that we will announce the date of the March City Council budget workshop that we would typically hold every March as part of our process, and we nailed on the dates according to council availability in February. So we'll try to make an effort to promote that and publicize that date as soon as possible. And then finally, I expect to present an update on the DOT as well. We last provided an update around Thanksgiving or just before the holiday season. It's been a couple months now. We are coming, it's my understanding from the contractor that we're coming close to concluding the concrete pour portion of it, which is the bulk of the project, in February. So weather's been kind to us so far. So I would expect to provide a comprehensive project update and present that to City Council and the public in February.
Excellent. Thank you. And moving on to call to council, we're going to start with Councilwoman James.
I didn't prepare anything in advance, but I'll echo Marnie's call for people to work as election inspectors. I've done it before myself. It's a fascinating process. Anyone who is remotely politically inclined should do it at least once just to know what it's like and what it takes to actually administer our system of voting. So that goes double for me. And then just a comment that, that I want to make. One of the reasons, there wasn't discussion around this, but I just want to acknowledge that one of the reasons that we pulled an agenda item today is because there's been some discussion in the community and priorities among council members. I don't want to speak for anyone else specifically, I know they'll speak for themselves, but about making sure that information about boards and commissions is more publicly available. And I'm the one who resigned from the Civil Service Board, and so I knew that there was a vacancy there. I don't know if anyone else ever was apprised of that vacancy. So I think it was appropriate to delay that to make sure that the public's aware that the Civil Service Board needs another board member. Hopefully we can consider some additional applications, or at least have a time period where people can have the opportunity to submit applications, and reconsider that at a future time.
Excellent. Next is Councilwoman Mikulski.
Just lower this since I'm short. So I wanted to take a moment to read a letter that was submitted to all of us from Ferndale resident and commission member Augusto Mike Flores. So we start with, to begin, I want to clearly state my comments are not a reflection of the residents being considered. In fact, they should be applauded for their willingness to volunteer on important city boards and commissions like the Civil Service Board and the Downtown Development Authority Board. To continue, I am concerned with the lack of transparency for the appointment process. I'm able to confirm that as early as December 6, 2019, and as late as January 26, 2020, both boards state no current openings, just as you said, on the City of Ferndale Boards and Commissions website. Each of you has acknowledged the important roles the boards and commissions play in city government. Each of you has stated the important roles boards and commissions play or pay to engage the community. I apologize. And each of you has publicly stated a commitment to transparency, community engagement, effective communication, and fighting cronyism bias in our city. With all that said, I wanted to commend Mike for urging us to accountability. And I wanted to share a quote from a mentor of mine, Dr. Frida Lewis Hall, who recently transitioned from her role as Chief Medical Officer at Pfizer. Transparency is the currency of trust. During my campaign this past year, it was clear that the city was facing serious trust issues. I felt it too. My own experience applying to boards and commissions within the city was subpar, and the lack of communication and transparency in the process left me feeling voiceless and powerless to be involved in more meaningful and impactful ways. I certainly didn't feel the value of inclusiveness that we as a city support. As such, one of the first things I did after being elected was reach out to our city manager and our city clerk for a current copy of all boards and commissions and their current members so that I could get a better feel for opportunities for others to engage. I wanted to take a moment and thank Lena at the DDA for taking time to talk to me on Friday, to review the process by which she receives and reviews applications, and for going above and beyond to investigate and determine that we were in jeopardy of falling below the limit of members needed on the DDA board. I also wanted to thank Mayor Piana for taking time to field my concerns and for providing feedback. I also want to thank Sarah Brown and Dennis Whitey for taking time to talk. I was on the phone all day Friday. I don't know if that's clear. To listen to my concerns about the process and for being so gracious about my stance. We have to do better. We know that. Our city manager has identified information gaps, processes rife for improvement, and action items to correct them. I personally think, for simplicity's sake, tabling the Civil Service Board appointment tonight allowed us to communicate the vacancy on the city website through multiple communication channels and ultimately provide at least 2 weeks to allow other interested parties to apply. Again, to be clear, this is not about people, it's about the process and the perception. Trust is earned, and with some tweaks to improve transparency, I'm confident we'll earn it again. On that note, lastly, on a wholly unrelated note and more tangible item, I wanted to share that there have been a number of wildlife sightings, including foxes and coyotes, within Ferndale. Just wanted to get that out of the way. It's on social media. People are posting about it. December through March is their breeding season, so increased sightings are normal. Please keep an eye on small pets. Please refrain from using rat poison around your home so these natural predators can do their job. And just as a reminder, Oakland County Animal Control does not handle wildlife. All concerns should be directed to the DNR, and their phone number is 800-292-7800. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Leaks May.
All right. So tonight, we spoke of an important topic and brought awareness to human trafficking. And I spoke with a former council colleague as well as former mayor, by way of text, actually. And he had some really good ideas. And one of his ideas was to, maybe the city of Ferndale could maybe promote, post signs or some sort of information in the bathrooms in our parks, in gas stations, anywhere where it's public, where someone may not necessarily be able to reach out for help, but maybe want to do something anonymously, or just to get, just to know that there is an out if they're in some sort of danger. So I don't know if we have anything like that in place here at the city level, parks, gas stations. Just, I think it's an easy initiative, and it's something that we should look into. Just putting that out there. Also, schools. So I don't know if you all know, residents here in Ferndale, but every year the schools portray the talent among their students, just to kind of showcase what they've been doing with our students for years. This Saturday at Ferndale High is All City. And what that does is that you get to see the talents of the band, orchestra, choir, color guard, just to kind of see what makes us proud of our students, and get a taste of the music department of our, I call it world-renowned music program, but I don't know if they have that title, but they're amazing. In particular, this Saturday at noon, I am a mother of a Winter Guard participant, and if you want to see this fantastic performance, you want to get there at noon to check it out. But 11 to 4, you will see all of the performances, and it's something to see all of these students. You get to see the progression from the 5th graders all the way up to the 12th graders, and it's amazing. So it's free to the public, so I encourage you to go in and check them out. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Polika.
Nothing this evening, Madam Mayor.
Excellent. And I'll wrap it up. I just wanted to say that last week I was in Washington, D.C. to attend my first U.S. Conference of Mayors Conference at the 88th Winter Meeting. I was there with a handful of other Michigan mayors, as well as the CEO of the Michigan Municipal League, and one of the mayors called it Mayor College. And so it's where mayors go to learn from other mayors on all the issues that we seem to share together. And it was really refreshing in that the entire organization, and as well as all the mayors across from the U.S., really support bipartisan and compassionate way of working together. So it's sort of very opposite of what you're seeing at the federal level. Because mayors get things done, council people get things done, cities get things done, because we have to deliver on things that our residents want. And so I was just really honored to be there, and I just wanted to say that I did participate in the Mayors Against LGBTQ Discrimination, and former Mayor Coulter also supports this, but I wanted to let you know I'm continuing to be that voice as your mayor. And I was astounded of the very discriminatory laws being passed by states against transgender people. Fortunately, those haven't truly hit Michigan yet, but there are laws are across the state criminalizing doctors who treat transgender kids who are trying to receive health care. It's really astounding what is happening. So I urge you to pay attention going forward. I also want to let you know a big topic that is being discussed across the United States is the future of work for our cities. And it's the discussion of automation and artificial intelligence and how it's changing jobs, and that the federal government with states need to help cities start planning ahead and planning for a different workforce. So workforce development is something critical that is being looked at, and a lot of mayors feel like the federal government isn't really truly helping pull along, and that cities are doing the bulk of the work. And I think it's something that our city needs to be taking a very critical look at as well, and where we fit in the whole spectrum of automation, because it's coming. And so that was a very interesting point. And then I'm also supporting a new organization called When We All Vote. Since 2020 is a significant election year, trying to get more young people to vote. And I know this has been an issue and cause of our Madam Clerk, Marnie McGrath, and something that all of council members, current and past, have supported. And so When We All Vote is getting more young kids registered with our schools and teaching about the voting process. So getting back to Civic Engagement 101. And we'll be hopefully working with Marnie on some of these ideas that the mayors tell you to steal that you learn about at the Mayor's College. So, and then my final announcement is from our Honorable County Commissioner Helene Zach, who could not be here tonight. She wanted me to announce that the Oakland County Summer Jobs applications are opening February 3rd. And you can go online to www.oakgov.com/jobs, and let me just check my text to make sure that date is right. February 3rd. All right. So young teenagers who are looking for some jobs, please go out and apply. And with that, I adjourn our meeting tonight at 8:37.